Right, a very good morning. Thank you for staying with Your World on NTV this morning. Welcome to this yet again special edition of Your World, where we get to talk about matters very important to you. And this morning, we'd like to shift this conversation and talk about milk, because we are live from Cheko ECDE Center, that is in Kasarani Ward in Nairobi County. And if you grew up in the 80s, by the way, and early 90s, and you went to school, you must remember the very famous Maziwa ya Nyayo. It was a very amazing school milk program that had a very huge impact in terms of increasing school enrollment among children, as well as improving their nutrition, and of course, helping improve or grow the country's dairy sector. But due to challenges here and there, the country had to terminate that program, and various stakeholders have been working to try and bring it back over the years, that is including milk processors, the Kenya Dairy Board, as well as county governments and learning institutions, to try and see if we can bring this amazing program back. And that's what we want to talk about this morning, with my guests joining me live, of course, as I mentioned, from Cheko ECDE Learning Center in Kasarani Ward. With me this morning is Margaret Kibogi. She's the Managing Director of the Kenya Dairy Board, as well as the CEC for Education, Nairobi County, that is Janet Ouko. A very good morning to all of you and welcome to the show.
Good morning. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and maybe if you can start here, Margaret. Anyone who grew up in the 80s and 90s, this is not something new for them. This is something they're quite used to. But perhaps because of a few sustainability issues, the program had to be terminated. But you guys have been working to try and bring it back. Let's just maybe start there and see how far we are in that journey.
All right, thank you very much, and good morning, everyone. We've been working very closely as Kenya Dairy Board. One of our mandates is to promote consumption of milk in the country, and of course to grow the dairy sector and the nutritional value that the milk brings in place, especially among the ECD children. So what we have been doing is to work very closely with the county governments across the 47 counties to ensure that they implement the school milk program. In the 80s, remember that we had Maziwa Nyayo in the country between the 1980 and till 1988, where it targeted about 4.3 million children in primary school. That is from the ECD all the way to standard 8. And at the moment, we are targeting the ECD children, about 4 million in the country. At the moment, we have 7 counties that have adopted the school milk program, and the Nairobi County is one of them, where they have about 17,000 children, of course, benefiting from the school milk program. And we want to appreciate the work that is being done by the Nairobi County in implementing the school milk program. And we're here today, this morning, to just follow up on the program of the school milk program in the country, of course, in support of the food system feature on children and the youth. So our focus is on that area, and we'll be looking at the implementation and the benefits that it has on the children and, of course, the dairy sector.
Okay.
Thank you.
And now that you've mentioned 7 counties, so these are 7 counties which are now delivering milk to children. How often do they do this?
They do it on weekly basis to the ECD centers across the 7 counties. We're encouraging the other 40 counties that have not adopted this program, of course, to join in, so that you can be able to benefit in terms of diversification of food to the children.
Okay. Yeah. And you mentioned that Nairobi County is one of them, and Janet Ouko is with us. She's the CEC for Education. Janet, clearly it had to start here in the city, but the population is quite big. Have we been able to cover literally every ECDE center in Nairobi County?
Yeah, thank you very much for having us. And as you rightly say, Nairobi County is one of the biggest, especially in terms of population. And we have 230 ECD centers spread across the city. And when we were having the school milk program, and as you've had here, that there are sustainability challenges, of course, because of budget issues. So for now, we are a little bit post, but I'm happy to say that we have a provision in the budget that was just passed in July for this financial year that have begun, and we are looking to, start within this year. But I have to note that our numbers have really grown. We were talking about 17,000, but at current we are doing 31,000 children. And I want to really attribute that to the program that we were having for milk. Believe you me, the day that we were serving milk, because when we were doing so, we were doing 3 days a week. We could have so many children that were home, but they could just come to get the packet of milk. So milk really helped us to mobilize ECD children into joining our centers. And we really look forward to having the program once again, because we've also expanded our facilities, and we're asking every parent to bring their child to school. So milk really becomes a very easy way of children naturally getting attracted to the centers and then coming to the centers.
Okay. And I like that because, child hunger has always been one of those major factors that has affected school attendance, especially among children, and especially in areas, especially rural and in arid and semi-arid areas. You've mentioned the numbers of enrollment. For how long has the program been ongoing in Nairobi? And how much of those numbers can we attribute to now having this program in school?
I would confidently say that when we served milk, we were able to sustain it for a whole one term. And I think part of second term, that was of course before COVID came and disrupted a lot of things. And a lot of our budgets were redirected to preparing our centers towards COVID preparedness. If you look on our right, you will see structures that we've been able to put up because the numbers really expanded. And because of COVID, we could not wait for brick and mortar. So we just put up makeshift, facilities. So that's where a lot of our budget went to. But then if you've mentioned a very important component, that of child hunger, and it is real. When we were serving milk, I remember one time we gave milk to some children in a place called Jehovah Jireh. And one child was not taking that milk in school. So I thought that they were having challenges opening the packet. So I went to help the child open the packet, and he told me, no, I want to go home with this one so that we can make tea. This is a very young child, 5 years, but they've already appreciated the challenges at home, and they want to help. A lot of them would come to school without any meal for the day, and they are really looking forward to the 10 o'clock so that we serve the milk. So child hunger is real, and especially people talk about the rural areas. I want to say that in Nairobi, especially in the non-formal settlements, child hunger is real, and we have seen this milk really boosting the nutritional aspects of children and their well-being, and even improving their levels of concentration in class.
And I think she mentions a very good point, Margaret, because we just tend to look at the numbers in terms of attendance, but there's also an aspect of nutrition.
Yes.
Because when you're looking at a glass of milk, what are we looking at in terms of what a child or a human being is ingesting?
Yes. The benefits of course, of school milk to these children has, of course, the impact of the nutritional aspect, which is, of course, the calcium, the phosphorus, the vitamin B12, and among other things. So it is very, very key for us to implement because it has the benefits of the nutrition and, of course, the positive impact on the dairy sector in terms of livelihoods. When you look at the SDGs, the UN Sustainable Development Goals, look at the ending of hunger, look at poverty elevation, and of course nutritional aspect. This is able to address some of those SDGs
that means
on the UN.
Through this one program, we can be able to, at least strive to achieve about 3, if I'm not wrong, of all those Sustainable Development Goals set by the United Nations.
Yes, that is very, very true, and that is why this program is very key. Just to note in the educational sector and of course in the dairy sector, because it's going to transform livelihoods. And of course we know these are the children, these are our future, and there is need for us to ensure that their health is key. And of course we'll be able to reduce issues of diseases. And especially now when we have issues of COVID, with this kind of nourishment, we'll be able to limit issues of disease and hospitalization through this program.
But Janet has only been able to address Nairobi County, but you guys undertook a survey some time back. Have we seen the same impact in terms of enrollment in the rest of the 6 remaining counties?
Very, very true. In the survey that we undertook in the 7 counties who have adopted the school, we have seen increased enrollment. One of the key cases that we noted is when one county had not adopted the school milk, we saw movement of children to the schools that have the school milk program that forced the other counties, of course, to adopt this school program. We also saw increased attendance, alertness of the children in class, and of course, low absenteeism from the attendance to school. So it's a very, very good program that we want to encourage the other counties to be able to adopt this school milk uptake.
Okay. Janet, if we can come back to you, because I think there was a survey in 2018, if I'm not wrong, and it showed that 850,000 children, largely in arid and semi-arid areas, were actually out of school for one reason or another. A huge part of that reason is because, I mean, you have to do other things at home to try and provide for your family. So if we were to think about replicating this program across the country, we're definitely looking at a replication in terms of the impact, in terms of enrollment.
Yeah, and I think for us here in the city, is that I know we contribute a lot to that statistic, probably because if you're looking at a parent in Nairobi that is wondering, that has 4 children, and some are of upper grade, say grade 4, 5, and going up, and there's one here that is just turning 4, 5 years, and there's a struggle about resources, and the parent wants to make a decision as to which child to really, where is the priority. It is very obvious that the early grade years, the early childhood child will be left at home, and probably the parent will choose to take the 4, 5, 6 child. Yet, the research has shown that early childhood is the most critical aspect, because the foundation that is laid here at early childhood really improves the abilities of a child to acquire numeracy and literacy skills in other years to come, and also contributes largely to the development of a child, because research has also shown it is at this stage that the brain is developing the most. So I would really say that to even target further, we want to target the milk program to the early grade, the early childhood children, so that we can bring as many children as we can to early childhood, so that then they can be oriented very early in some of these competencies, and this will help our results when the children transit now to the upper grades. It will also help parents to really understand that education begins with early childhood. It is a struggle we are having, because also if you look at how our education was done earlier, early childhood is a component that looks like it has just come the other day. So a lot of parents really don't lay emphasis on it. And that's why I believe this milk program will help parents also understand and know that early childhood is as important a component, in any case, more important probably than the earlier years when a child is going through development. It is not right that a child who is 4, 5 years is staying at home and waiting to join standard 1 just because they are big. You can look at them and say they are 7 years. The parents, the children are losing out a lot. And I would really say that I would encourage my colleagues in other, county governments, because we've only had the statistics saying we're only 7 counties. I would really encourage all other counties to try and do something about probably they would have other incentives, but I would tell them from our own experience, the milk program has really worked for us. It has delivered for us good results for early childhood. Yeah.
Wonderful. And of course, definitely we will try to see, before we take a break, we'll try to see the children who are benefiting from this program and what it actually means for them. But before we do that, that break, MD, we cannot also overlook the impact that this has in the entire dairy sector in the country. We are talking about smallholder farmers who have always been struggling with markets for their milk. You take it to the local market. You try to spend the whole day perhaps trying to see who you can sell your milk to. Who are you engaging for this?
Okay. When you look at the dairy sector, the demand for milk and milk products is growing. And of course, through this program alone, the demand, when you look at the number of ECD in the country, we have a total of 4 million ECD children. If we were to give milk on a weekly basis, that translates to about 150 million liters. And if you translate in terms of value, it's about, only this segment of ECD, it translates into a value of Kenyan shillings 5 billion just on the demand for the school. That is only the ECD, not just primary, because we have about over 13 million in terms of primary, but ECD alone in the country is 4 million. So if we were to adopt this school milk program in the 47 counties, it means we are going to automatically create a demand for milk of liters, 150 million liters annually. If we're going to create a demand of 100 million liters annually, it means the small-scale holders, the farmers, will definitely have an automatic market for their products, besides the normal other demand of consumption. The other benefit of this program, of course, is the enhancement of consumption. As you know, that the country demand consumption per liter per person is 110. We estimate that this is going to grow, and it is through this kind of initiatives, when we start at this level, we'll be able to create demand or the consumption per person per liter. And we estimate that that is supposed to grow until 130 liters per person per year. So when you look at even the region, we are high consumers as a country, per liter. We are the highest in Africa. It's because of this kind of initiatives that started in the 80s. It's because of that socialization, and you will see the benefits, both the benefits in terms of creating markets, the benefits in terms of health to our children, and of course, the elevation of poverty in terms of SDGs that is supporting this program.
Okay. Yeah. And maybe, Janet, just before we take this break, let me just take you back to the issue of how often so when it's supplied weekly, right? But how many times in a week do the children get the milk?
Usually we do three times a week.
It's like Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.
Yes, and you can tell those are happy days. You can tell even from the registers, you can tell that it's we clock 100%. Yeah, but when they know there is no milk, you know there is. But when there is milk, some even come with their younger brothers to school just to get that packet of milk.
And so this is something we can not overlook. But for the moment, you're just dealing with the lower level of education, right?
Yeah, we're just dealing with PP1 and PP2. But there is also another challenge because this is a center that we just began the other day, and because there is no public primary school here. We have just begun with the PP1 and PP2. But in places where we have the PP1 and PP2 and then a class 1 next, we usually have a challenge distributing the milk. In fact, in some of the schools we opted, as opposed to giving the ECD children only 3 times a week, we now do once a week, but we give even to the standard one. Because they cannot stomach that their peers are getting milk and themselves they are not getting. So it's something that probably, we could probably target grade 1, 2, and 3, and then maybe it's a discussion that needs to happen at the national government. But we have seen how in the schools where the ECDs are coexisting with the primary schools, we usually have a challenge giving the ECD children only and leaving out especially the grade 1s.
Great. That is, of course, one of the challenges that this program has faced so far, and one of the biggest solution to part of that problem could be the bill by Senator Beatrice Kwamboka, which is proposing that the government fully adopts and reverts back to what you would call back in the day Maziwa ya Nyayo, which is a school milk program where school-going children are provided regularly with milk. We will talk about that initiative, what it will mean for school enrollment, nutrition, and the country's dairy sector after this commercial break. Don't go too far because Margaret Kiboki and Janet Ouko are staying with me after this break.
On Nyota. Pata channel sita zaidi when you pay for more than 1 month on Nyota Bouquet. Enjoy more entertainment on Nyota.
Lucozade. Energy to get through it.
Fresh fried ginger has ginger oil, which is good for a healthy living lifestyle. It combines wonderfully on salads, stir fries, when basted on roasted meat, or simply sprinkled on your favorite dish. Now available in 250 ml, 500 ml, and 1 liter.
Kwa nini kunichenga chenga chenga chenga?
Miaka mitatu kule Japan.
Kidogo tu.
Usomea kudunga watu.
Utamu tu.
Sindane.
Jamani, tunachenga mpira ndani ya gumzo la Sato.
Sitaki mzee aliezeka. Nataka kijana. Sasa ni
kazi wewe una vita na sisi nikueleze.
Bila utakuota kidogo.
Ngoja. Hata mimi.
Tukijadili masuala yanayokuathiri wewe katika jamii.
Hii ni sura yangu na hii sura imeolewa.
Na mambo mingi kwa ndoa ambayo hayahusiani na mapenzi peke yake.
Penda kweli lakini pia tumia bongo.
Naloogopa kusema na wengine Frida twaliweka wazi.
Huyo mwanamume wa kizungu akaja na pupa mwisho akabakishwa na kachumbari na maavocado.
I'm not a burden to her. Like she'll be feeding me like
Huyo babu mimi namuelewa. Anajua anakoenda. Shiro hata afadhali ungeniuliza ngapa leo ndugu yangu mdogo. Ombea.
Friday at 10 p.m., NTV is dubbed as the home to the biggest and most fascinating people on TV. We give you a fix of the latest trends in entertainment. Pack your eardrums with the freshest hits. And bring you the biggest names in the 254 and beyond. Energy, synergy, fun and flair. If it's hot, it's on the trend. If it's not, well... Catch this exhilarating show every Friday from 10 p.m. with the freshest trio, Osoro Viamono, the Scratch Master himself, DJ E, and your sassy homegirl, Amina Abdi Rabar. All this on the trend, only on NTV.
It always amazes me how much we take magical Kenya for granted, man.
Everything okay, let's go. Okay, all right. Zimenishika, yo.
We are back with the gang. 1, 2, come on.
His name is Kiar Jitidon.
Backpen. Breeder LW. And I'm now watching. And you're watching.
And you're watching.
Next 360.
Wow, thank you for your time. How juicy.
Juicy. Juicy.
Lucozade. Energy to get through it.
And the rest are peeping.
Why, thank you very much for staying with Your World on NTV this morning. We are live from Chieko ECDE Center, that is in Kasarani ward of Nairobi County this morning, as we talk about Matters Milk, especially Matters Milk among school-going children. Now, as I mentioned earlier, if you grew up in the 80s and early 90s, you probably remember the Maziwa ya Nyayo school milk program. It was terminated because of a few issues of sustainability. But now it's back in, stakeholders are trying to see if it can be reintroduced. And one of those is the basic school amendment bill by Senator Beatrice Kwamboka to try and see if Kenya can reintroduce the school milk program for school-going children in Kenya. We'd like to talk about that in this hour. Remember, I'm still with, of course, Margaret Kibogi. She's the Managing Director of the Kenya Dairy Board, as well as Janet. She's the CEC for education in Nairobi County. Thank you for staying with us. And if you're seeing the pictures behind us, it's just the children enjoying the milk that they are receiving at the moment. But clearly, we left it at the challenges of trying to sustain this program. And this is where it began until the program collapsed in the 90s.
Yes.
Maybe for where we have started right now, what are the other challenges that are facing the program, Janet?
Yeah, the other challenges facing the program, of course, the only challenge facing the program, I would say it is budgets. We really cannot over-discuss the importance of milk. Everybody, and especially those of us that attended, school during those days, we know the benefits of it. If you want to talk about nutrition, if you want to talk about retaining children, in school, if you just want to talk about the general making of the schooling experience fun and lovely and something to look forward to, all that about milk, we really cannot over-discuss. But the challenge is in budgets. And also the challenge is in what other priorities are existing, Before we even, some people would call it posh, Some people would call it posh.
Yeah.
And probably others would call it non-essential, If you think about the many challenges that are bedeviling, the basic education sector.
Yeah.
But to say that for posterity, it would be important to anchor it in law, so that when governments get funding, they don't have, they already have where they're coming from, if it's within the frameworks. Because probably someday we shall outgrow the challenges that we are experiencing of underfunding. And so having it in law, for me, would be a plus. There is absolutely nothing wrong with having it in there. But the question then would be, is it one of one of those things that we would want to legislate, about? And I do not, for me, I do not think that we do not have governments prioritizing school milk because it is not in law.
Okay.
That is not. I do not think that there is an evil we are seeking to cure through the law.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And maybe I can come to you, Margaret, because the Kenya Dairy Board has really invested a lot of resources and energy to try and see this program on track. Maybe for the few years that this has been going, what are those lessons that you have learned that should inform the next step from here?
Well, first of all, I would like to start with welcoming the bill, the Basic Education Amendment Bill 2020 by Senator Kwamboka. That is really timely, and it is really going to be a game changer, and it's going to transform the dairy sector. During the 80s, just to recap, during the initial Maziwa Nyayo milk, then we only had one processor, that was the new KCC, that was distributing and of course processing the milk for that segment. But as we talk now, the dairy sector has expanded. And of course, we now have the UHT and the pouch packets, specifically, that is very attractive for the school-going children. So the sector is ready for the school milk uptake in the country. So the bill is welcome, and I would want to urge the senators to pass that bill as soon as possible, so that we can be able to reap the benefits as soon as possible, so that the children can be able to benefit, the sector can be able to benefit.
Okay.
What, of course, some of the experiences that we have learned, of course, is we have seen in issues of manufacturing and issues of health. We have also seen a number of processors now coming. When you look at even the counties, the 7 counties, some of them are able to process milk for their own ECD centers. Look, an example, of course, is like Muranga. We have examples like Meru. They're able to see these programs. So once we do this uptake, the counties are able to do that. They're able to actually produce and be able to process the milk for their own ECD centers and even the whole schools that we're able to have. So we'll be able to expand the dairy sector as a whole. So those are some of the benefits that we're looking at in this program, and we want to encourage, of course, the counties to be able to uptake. As Kenya Dairy Board, we have put in place policies. We have been put in place, of course, areas where we want to build capacity in issues of sustainability, in issues of how we are going to be able to ensure that all the centers in the country are able to get...
And we'll come back to the issue of sustainability, but I like the point that you make about the county governments processing their own milk, because one of the issues with this bill is scaling it up to pupils and now this pre-primary levels of learning. But the number of pupils in school now, you cannot compare to the 80s. I think it's tripled probably 10 times. So, and the other question someone would worry about is whether our dairy industry can be able to supply milk enough to feed the entire of Kenya's primary school-going children.
Yeah. In issues of production, when you look at the production, we're still the highest in terms of the region. And of course, we're looking at, of course, expanding issues of milk production in the country. We're currently producing 3.9 cow milk. The other is camel milk and goat milk. We are expanding that segment for camel and, of course, the goat milk. In total, we are producing 5.2 billion liters as a country. And we are looking at even doubling. Yes, we're looking at even doubling that production to be able to meet the growing demand, the growing population, and, of course, the diversity. And this particular program will be able to of course, create demand for milk and milk products for the country. As a board, we have put in place initiatives and programs to enhance production, which includes, of course, looking at issues of feed, animal husbandry, issues of breeding, that we, together with other agencies, we are looking at those segments, both at national and the county government programs. So we'll be able to meet this demand as a country, definitely.
Okay. Maybe let me come back to you, Janet. As we try to replicate this program and try to scale it up, what are we looking at, especially from where you sit as a CEC for Education, Nairobi County? What are we looking at when we now try to see it in higher levels of primary school? Let's say, is it called preparatory 1? What used to be class 1 for us and class 2, and especially those under the age of 10?
Now, for me, it would still come back to the financial arrangements at the various levels of government. So for the national government, we already know that there is a certain amount of budget that has been set, for education. You're looking at about 24% of the national budget is what goes to education. So you're looking at the school milk program again now, finding its way there to compete with other priorities. So I think also there is a discussion that needs to happen there. And now when again you now come back to the county government, you're finding a situation where we do not have very concrete structures as such, like the national government. We do not have yet percentages, that are agreed upon, that a county government should spend XYZ amount of budget towards education. And it's more of sporadic, within the county. If the governor likes the program, then it becomes a priority, if it's among his flagship projects. So I think there is quite a lot of campaign for the milk, industry to do to the various governors, so that then that can get the buy-in, especially because they have explained that within the county governments, we do not have agreed upon, thresholds that you can spend XYZ on education, on roads, on this. It is just
So you think there should be some sort of a uniform policy for all counties, as a basis for all county governments?
Yes, we are working on that, and it's something that we've given to the County of Governors Coordination, so that we have to stop the sporadic way of doing things, because again, we can do all this campaign, but after 2022, we will have
a new governor comes in and he doesn't like the program.
Doesn't like the program, or thinks that even if I continue with the program, it is not my flagship, it is so much associated with my predecessor. So he decides to kill it, and will decide to revive it, as at the time that he will feel like now, all the credit will come back to me. So I think there's quite a lot of work that needs to happen at the county government.
I'm sure Margaret wants to say something, given the energy that she has really put into these programs.
Yes. I want to echo what the CC for Nairobi County, Janet, is saying, that we should be able to have a continuity and a sustainable school milk program, that we don't just look at flagship. We want to look at the benefits that is we are going to benefit from this program to our children and to the sector and even to the country at large. Because when you look at the contribution of the dairy sector, it is 4% to the GDP. So with this, through these programs, we'll be able to even expand that kind of GDP, and it will have a lot of benefits. It will create employment, and of course many other benefits that will come along through this implementation of program. So I want to agree with her that this program should be sustainable. We should be looking at policies that do not change because there is change of office bearer. It should be continuous because it has benefits to the country, not just to the office, but to the country at large.
Okay. Now let me take you back to the Maziwa ya Nyai, and this we can never contest the impact that it had in the country in different sectors and issues of nutrition and enrollment and all that. But ultimately, it came to an end, and there are reasons why it came to an end, right? One of them, they said, was an issue of sustaining the budgetary allocations for this program. What, from where you sit as the MD, what should inform, if this bill sails through, what should inform our next step, the lessons from now, what happened to the previous program and the collapse, and how we can make sure that this one becomes more sustainable?
Yes. Very true. That it is very, very important to ensure that this program is sustained just the way other countries are doing it. We have, when you look at the global perspective, we have over 160 million children benefiting from school milk program across the world. We are no exception. Learning from even other countries, the way to go, of course, is to ensure that there is sustainability through policy and funding.
And it's amazing how this has worked in some countries. I think, was it Iran where I saw it working very well?
Yes. It is just sustainability of policy and funding and availability. I want to assure the Kenyans and of course the counties and of course the education sector that the country as Kenya is able to produce safe and good quality milk for our children, and of course even for the general population. So with that assurance of availability of safe and quality milk, the policy interventions that include sustainable funding of this program is the way to go. So in that bill that is going to ensure that we have funding for this program, will ensure as a sector that we avail, of course, sufficient milk. Of course, that will be an incentive to the farmer because they have already a ready market. And when there is a ready market, I can tell you that the dairy farmers are very hardworking. They'll ensure that they produce enough milk. As of course, as a board and even as government, we'll be able to have programs to intensify production of milk and milk products. We'll also be looking at even other segments like camel milk, the goat milk, because all have nutritional benefit to our children, and we ensure that it is delivered in a very safe way and of good quality.
Okay, and maybe because you've mentioned the issue of farmers, I think 80% of our milk comes from what you call small scale farmers. Those people who sometimes struggle to find that market. So as a board, as the people who spearhead this, are you factoring in perhaps including, making sure that indeed if there is anyone who is going to benefit more from this, it has to be perhaps that small scale smallholder farmer who would ideally on a normal day struggle with issues of markets and preservation and value addition?
Yes. When you look at the dairy sector, in the country. We have 1.8 million smallholder farmers that are producing for us the milk for the country. And what we are looking at is organizing the farmers through the cooperatives. And as the ministry has been able to distribute milk coolers together, the national and the county government and the private sector.
Yeah.
They've been able to distribute cooling milk coolers to various cooperatives in the country. Through this channel, the small scale farmers can be able to deliver their milk to those cooperatives, and then the processors will be able to collect the milk from the cooperatives. So we want to encourage the smallholder farmers to form cooperatives wherever they are, then be able to collect, because through that collection of milk, of course, will enhance the issues of quality and the issues of marketing, because it will be very easy to collect and will not have issues of post-harvest losses. So we have those programs that support the small-scale farmers across the country, and we are doing it on continuous basis. That includes even training them, building capacity in areas of production, areas of disease management, issues of course, feeding, to ensure that they get and they maximize from the few cows that they have or the many cows. And of course, looking at also the commercial, the big dairy farmers, because we do not want to leave anybody behind.
Yes.
All of us, as a sector, we want to work very closely to ensure that livelihoods are transformed. We want to ensure that the farmers have money, and we recognize every player along the dairy value chain. We recognize the farmer, we recognize the transporter who transports our milk to either the cooling center or to the processor. We recognize our processors, and they have been growing in terms of number. If you look at the 80s, we only had one processor. When you look at it today, we have over 35 processors within the country, and it is a growing, meaning the sector and the segment is growing. We also want to look at to ensure that the consumer gets the milk that is safe and is of good quality at a very competitive price, so that we can be able to increase demand and the consumption of milk and milk products in the country.
Thank you. Jana, let me just bring you, get your opinion on something different, because, I mean, the relationship between school enrollment and feeding programs it cannot be denied. It's there. It's a fact. But in recent years, we've seen quite a few challenges here and there, especially with the World Food Program. I don't know if you saw that story of them cutting funding for feeding program. From where I sit, this bill then by Senator Beatrice Komboka could have not come at any other better time to be able to perhaps ensure that we keep school-going children in school, because sometimes we can bring them to school, but if the program collapses very quickly, that's the end of it.
Yeah, and you're right. And one of the weaknesses I would point out of the bill, probably, is that it is not agreed that we want to replace school feeding with milk. You know, I know there's an argument that milk is a whole meal. But from what we have seen, the packet being provided, we are not able to say that that's a whole meal. And then looking at the cost of that one packet vis-a-vis probably like what you're talking about, what the World Food Program would give, it would probably give a meal at a cost of about 20 shillings, and you have a whole meal. So I think there's a conversation there that needs to happen, and I know that is what will get if many people got funding. I am not sure that a lot of them would make between milk and feeding and the actual feeding. I know there is a trade-off there to do. And the second challenge with the bill is where it targets. If you want to target early childhood, you do not talk to the Basic Education Act. You talk to an arrangement within county governments, because early childhood is a purview of the county governments. So hitting the county, I mean the Education Act does not impact on early childhood. It does not impact on the behavior of many county governments. So there is quite some thought that needs to go there, so that we know. Of course, again, we would also not want to encourage the habit of picking something just because it is emotive, or it can whip around emotions. You know, for example, when you talk about school milk, it's something popular, but then there is not a good amount of thought that has gone in there, so that you're really making impact. The idea is to make impact so
Yeah.
that, so I think there is quite some discussion that needs to happen there with the stakeholders in education and especially the implementers at the county government level to know what exactly in terms of feeding and keeping children in school, what support would we want in terms of legislation.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, and I think definitely this conversation cannot end here. But before I come back for your closing remarks, I think our good friends have taken a glass of milk each, and they feel energetic enough, and they have a poem for us. Maybe we can get to see what they have for us here at Chieko ECDE Center.
Tangu nilipozaliwa ni maziwa nimepewa, miaka 3 maziwa ya mama yangu maziwa, nayatamani maziwa, maziwa kweli matamu. Nilipoacha ya mama nikayaanza ya ng'ombe, kanifunza wangu mama kunywa maziwa ya ng'ombe. Ninayameza kwa kupima, yakaisha kwa kikombe. Napenda maziwa, maziwa kweli matamu. Ila yakiharibika, sijaribu kuyameza, na tumboni yakifika, maumivu utajaza. Sipitali utafika, watakudunga sikiza. Maziwa kweli matamu.
Maziwa kweli ni matamu. Chieko ECDE Center in Kasarani Ward, children there giving us a very beautiful poem there, of course, from the experience. Having taken each a glass of milk, clearly they are energetic, and of course, if anything, it clearly gives the importance of this program and why it needs to perhaps be scaled up across the country and to different forms of levels of learning among children. But really, this conversation cannot end here. It has to continue online and offline as we continue to see the impact and grow, increase enrollment numbers, grow the country's dairy industry, and ensure that our children are healthy. But let me just come back to all of you for your closing remarks, given all the issues that we have addressed, especially with the way forward regarding this bill. And I'll start with you, Janet.
No, I think for me it's a good thing for us to get as a way of sustaining the efforts to provide a packet of milk for every child. It has proved very helpful for us in education. We really love how it is impacting on our numbers. We really love how it is keeping the children concentrating in class. We really like the way the packet makes sure that we are able to retain as many children as we can for the entire 5 days of a week. So we would really encourage county governments and also the legislature to try and work out a way where successive governors or probably different regimes do not kill as important programs.
So sustainability is the thing.
Sustainability, both in budgets and also in terms of political commitment for various regimes.
And if anyone was ever in doubt on how transformative this program could be in the education sector, what do you have to say?
If anybody is in doubt, let them visit our centers and actually ask to see the register, the school register, especially for the times that we served the milk. They will definitely see for themselves what a packet of milk is able to do for the early learners.
Okay, and before I get your closing remarks, what I'm picking from what Janet is saying is, unfortunately, because of issues of budget and just how big this program needs to be able to ensure that everyone is covered, there has to be some sort of partnership, at least from where I sit, from all stakeholders. We want to see county governments and maybe national governments, but let me just hear your reaction to that.
All right, first of all, I want to congratulate Nairobi County. When they started this program, we had 17,000. Yeah?
17,000.
17,000
At school-going children?
Yes.
ECD,
under ECDs. And now they have grown to 31,000.
Yeah, 31,000.
Yes. That is a big stride. And want to congratulate, considering that Nairobi County is big, of course, with a higher population compared to many other counties. We want to, of course, congratulate them for that initiative. and of course the support and the funding. And through the leadership of Nairobi County, we have worked very, very closely to ensure that this program does not have challenges. We want to encourage the other counties that have not implemented this program to implement this program, because it has benefit both to the education and of course to the dairy sector. There have been a lot of strides and progress in terms of impact. We just want to look at sustainability and adoption of the school milk program in the 47 counties. When you look at the 47 counties, we only have about 23 which are milk producing counties. Yeah, basically we'll say the milk producing counties. We also want the other counties to adopt this program, and in the process they can be able to grow their sectors. It doesn't matter, even if you're in Asal, you can still be able to produce milk, either in the segment of camel, the goat, or the cow. That way, we'll be able to create demand for our products, and we'll be able to grow that segment of the dairy along the dairy value chain. We'll have many players when we grow this sector of dairy.
Okay.
Yes.
Now let me just come back now for your closing remarks.
Yes. All right. We want to say that during this food system summit, where we are focusing on the children and of course the youth, we are happy that in terms of the diversification of feeding programs, dairy or milk has been included, and we want it to be enhanced. Even the consumption, not only in schools, even at home, where we have even seen growth in other products like cheeses, the consumption of cheese, consumption of yogurt, the consumption of fermented products. Through that diversification, we'll be able to attract more investors in this sector, and of course our farmers will be able to reap from this process. So we are happy to be here today to just look and assess the impact of the school milk program. Has just been put by the CC that they just started this program in this school because it was a small school, and you can see it is expanding. And the reason why it's expanding is because of this kind of programs. Because a child knows that when I go to school, I'll be able to get that milk. Yeah? And I'm told, in fact, when we were even doing our reviews and evaluation, I understand, in fact, some of them would like to carry some of this packet of milk
to their families,
to their siblings at home. So you can see the impact that it is creating. In fact, we want to enhance that kind of thing. So if we're able to have these programs across the country, we'll be able to see growth, of course, in terms of enrollment, attendance, and of course nutritional benefits of consumed milk in this country.
All right.
So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That's where we leave it this morning. We have been talking about the school milk program and the impact that it has had on the Kenyan child, of course, especially in the 7 counties where the Kenya Dairy Board and various stakeholders, including milk processors and county governments, have been spearheading this program. There is a plan to roll out and scale up the program across the country. That is what we've been talking about and what it would mean in terms of school enrollment as well as nutrition. But that's where we have to leave it this morning. Many thanks to my guest, Janet Ouko. She's the CEC for Education in Nairobi City County Government, as well as Margaret Kibogi. She's the Managing Director at the Kenya Dairy Board, who have, of course, been spearheading this initiative. But tomorrow at 7 a.m. we will be back with yet another exciting conversation. We'd like to talk about matrimonial property, especially after divorce, because every weekend the wedding bells ring and people are joined together to become one. But things don't go as they are normally expected, and people are forced to once again part ways and go separate ways. So what happens to the property that you guys acquired together? What happens to the TV and the car that you acquired together? And what does the law actually say? We will delve into that discussion tomorrow with my very insightful panel from 7 to 9 a.m.
Presenting the new Harpic bathroom cleaner. Compared to ordinary detergents, its thick formulation gives you superior cleaning and kills 99.9% of germs and viruses all around the bathroom. Blue
For the toilet.
and red
For the bathroom.
So how do you sufficient your ears? I'm Dr. Austin Oyuer, and this is Learn in a Minute.